So, you want to learn what all the fuss is about over Ohio's State Issue 2, formerly Senate Bill 5?
Yes. The unions, both public and private sector, are pretty upset. I'd like to understand why.
First off, this law, which was approved by the Ohio legislature in 2011, seeks to make adjustments to the public sector collective bargaining law which was enacted more than 30 years ago.
Why does the original law need to be changed? Did it go too far, or not far enough?
First, we need to establish that this new law affects the collective bargaining for only public sector unions.
So this new law does not affect the collective bargaining by private sector unions?
That's right. This has no bearing whatsoever on the private sector union workers. However, the general consensus is the original law didn't go far enough in determining what was allowed to be bargained for during negotiations with public sector unions.
What is the basic premise for the changes in this new law?
Basically, this new law allows the public sector employer, the average taxpayer, to have a greater control over expenses, things such as wages and benefits, especially since these two commonly comprise more than 94% of a public sector employer's budget.
And which public sector fields will this new law affect?
This new law will affect all unionized public sector employees, which is to say it will affect all public sector union employees, such as public school teachers, police, and firefighters.
Oh, I've heard that this new law eliminates policemen from being in a union once they become of the rank sergeant.
Not true. Ohio law recognizes and categorizes police sergeants and members of management. And even before this new legislation, prohibited police sergeants from being members of the same union as their subordinates. It did this to rightly prevent police sergeants from negotiating on both sides of the table. This new law doesn't change that at all. Police sergeants who are members of unions now will continue to be legal members of their own unions.
So what about the firefighters? How does this affect them?
The original law prior to SB 5 didn't make any such determination for firefighter lieutenants. Under original law, lieutenants weren't prohibited from being members of the same unions as their subordinates. The new law simply places the same union membership restrictions on the lieutenants as previously enacted law placed on police sergeants. This new legislation merely aligns state law.
I understand. What about teachers?
Collective bargaining by teachers over the years has provided for a retirement paid for completely by the taxpayer. And that retirement system is a private system funded nearly in whole by the public.
That doesn't make sense. Isn't there an employer portion and an employee portion, as is common in the private sector?
True. There are two portions. But union negotiations over the last several years have bargained for the employee portion of the retirement to be paid for by the employer, the taxpayer, instead of the employee, thus ensuring a no-cost retirement plan, a benefit that a majority of Ohio's population do not enjoy.
That doesn't seem fair, to place the cost of Ohio's public sector union employees' retirement completely on the backs of the average taxpayer.
Sure. And when polled on this single point of SB 5, a significant majority of Ohio voters agree. In fact, when broken out into its 4 individual points, Ohioans are in favor of 3 out of the 4 points, or 75% of the legislation.
And what about striking?
The new law criminalizes striking by public sector union employees.
Isn't the threat of the strike which can be used to motivate negotiations to the benefit of union?
Sure it is. But let's say the fire department is on strike because it didn't get what it wanted in negotiations. Who is going to save your house when it begins to burn down? Or if the police department is on strike, who is going to stop the criminals from breaking into your house and taking your stuff, or worse, harming you and your family?
Ooh, I don't like those ideas. I don't like them, not one little bit. If a majority of Ohioans are supportive of a majority of this legislation, why the repeal effort?
Public sector unions see this legislation as an attempt to weaken their collective bargaining position.
It would seem to me that if one side is weakened, wouldn't that strengthen the other side?
Bravo! Now you're getting it. The taxpayers, the owners of the public sector systems, are strengthened and better able to control costs without the threat of being held hostage by public sector unions.
Thank you. You've shed light on this issue for me, and I have been enlightened to much of the way the process works and how it is really supposed to work. I see now that a yes vote on Ohio's 2011 State Issue 2 is the right vote. What if we're still unsure how to vote when we go to the polls?
Ask yourself one simple question. Do I want to keep more of the money I earn in my pockets instead of lost to future higher taxes? Then the answer is so very clear.
It sure is. Please stand with us as we stand with all Ohio taxpayers and vote yes on Ohio's 2011 State Issue 2. It's the right vote.